Death row inmates. The final years behind bars in America's toughest prisons, the shadows behind bars. Before we dive into this harrowing story, make sure to smash that subscribe button, hit like, and drop a comment below. Because what you about to see inside America's deadliest prisons isn't for the faint of heart. Trust me, you'll want to stay till the end if you dare. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile, almost oppressive glow across the narrow hallway of the Louisiana State Penitentiary. The faint metallic clang of cell doors echoed in the distance, a chilling reminder that freedom was a memory here. Officer Daniels walked briskly, his footsteps merging with the low hum of the prison's security system, when a radio crackled. Unit 3, you need to report to Block D. Inmate 427 is requesting emergency review. Daniel's heart skipped. 427 wasn't just any prisoner. Raymond Red Calder, a man whose name alone sent shivers down the spines of guards and inmates alike. Convicted of a series of high-profile armed robberies and a murder spree in Texas, Calder had spent the last 12 years in solitary confinement. Yet here he was, demanding attention. As Daniels entered Block D, he saw Calder sitting perfectly still in the center of his cell, eyes staring at the wall as if he'd been waiting for him. There was a calmness in his presence that made Daniels uneasy. Calder's attorney had claimed that the man was cooperative, almost reflective in the past months, but anyone who had walked the same corridor knew better. "Officer," Calder began, his voice low, almost hypnotic, "there's something you need to see before it's too late." Daniels hesitated. Prison protocol was strict, never allow inmates to guide investigations, but something about Calder's tone forced his curiosity forward. Calder slid a small, crumpled envelope under the bars. Daniels picked it up, hands trembling slightly, and unfolded its contents. Inside was a series of photographs, grainy but unmistakable. They depicted locations across the state, deserted warehouses, shuttered motels, the outskirts of quiet towns. But it was the last photograph that froze Daniel's blood. A map of the prison itself, detailed to the tiniest corner, with certain areas circled in red. And scrawled across the corner in Calder's unmistakable handwriting were 3 chilling words: "Find her before it's too late." A chill ran down Daniel's spine. The prison had its secrets, of course, hidden fights, contraband networks, but this suggested something beyond the ordinary, something dangerous, and perhaps something that Calder alone had the power to reveal. Meanwhile, outside the prison walls, Detective Marissa Collins was piecing together a puzzle she hadn't even realized existed. A series of disappearances over the past year, mostly transient workers and small-town locals, had gone under the radar, dismissed as routine missing persons cases. But the patterns were now beginning to point toward Calder. Not as the perpetrator, at least not directly, but as a key to uncovering something far bigger. Back inside, Daniels realized Calder's sudden compliance was unusual. The inmate had been locked in a personal cell for nearly 23 hours a day, and yet his mind was sharp, calculated, almost unnervingly lucid. "Why now?" Daniels muttered under his breath, glancing at the security cameras. Calder's eyes met his. "Because," he said slowly, "they're already inside. You just don't know it yet." Every instinct screamed at Daniels that this was no ordinary request. Calder's reputation as a manipulator was legendary, but the tone of urgency, the carefully prepared evidence, it was all too precise to be a trick. And as Daniels studied the circled areas on the map, he noticed something chilling. One of them led straight to the warden's private office. Before he could process further, the intercom blared. "Emergency lockdown. All units to secure positions immediately." Chaos erupted. Guards shouted orders, alarms shrieked, and somewhere, deep in the shadows of the prison, Calder's faint smirk was visible. Daniels knew in that instant. Whatever was about to happen, it was bigger than anything the prison had ever seen. And then, as Daniels and a team of officers moved toward the warden's office, they found the outer door slightly ajar. No one had the keys. And inside, what they discovered would shatter everything they thought they knew about Calder, about the prison, and about the very nature of the danger lurking in America's toughest penitentiaries. Secrets in the shadows, the lockdown sirens echoed through the prison, bouncing off steel walls and cement floors, a relentless reminder that nothing here was ever safe. Officer Daniels' heart raced as he pushed open the warden's office door, flashlight slicing through the darkness. Papers were scattered, drawers forced open, but the room seemed empty. Until he saw it. A small, leather-bound notebook lay on the floor, its pages marked with meticulous notes, sketches, and dates. He picked it up, flipping through hurriedly. Each entry detailed movements, interactions, and, chillingly, names of people who had disappeared across the state. The handwriting was undeniably Calder's. But how? He had been behind bars, locked away for years. Someone on the outside had been feeding him information and orchestrating a network of terror Calder now cataloged with unnerving precision. Daniels' radio crackled, cutting through the tension. "Officer Daniels, Block D. You need to get back, now." A cold shiver ran down his spine. Calder's cell had been breached. When Daniels arrived, he found the cell empty. Security cameras confirmed it. Calder had never been in the cell for the past hour. Yet there had been no signs of a breach in the high-security unit. The cameras showed only static during the critical minutes. Someone had interfered. Someone with access. Detective Marissa Collins, already deep into her investigation, arrived moments later. She examined the notebook. "This isn't just Calder's work," she said, her voice taut with disbelief. "This is coordinated. Whoever's helping him, they know exactly how to cover their tracks. And they've been doing it for years." Daniels looked at her, the weight of realization pressing down. Are we saying someone inside is working with him? Marissa's eyes didn't leave the pages. Not just someone inside. Someone high up. Meanwhile, Calder had vanished into the maze of service corridors beneath the prison. Hidden passages few knew existed twisted like veins under the facility, allowing movement unseen by guards, security systems, or cameras. He wasn't just running. He was orchestrating, manipulating, playing a game no one else even knew existed. Hours passed. The tension inside the prison mounted as every cell, hallway, and office was searched. Yet Calder was always one step ahead. And then came the call that escalated everything. "Detective Collins, there's been an incident at Lakeview Motel, south of Baton Rouge. Multiple rooms ransacked. Security footage shows a man matching Calder's description leaving at dawn." Marissa froze. "He's out. Outside the prison." Daniels clenched his fists. "Impossible. He was in solitary. We saw him there." But the evidence didn't lie. Calder had escaped. Not by breaking walls or overpowering guards. Someone had facilitated it from inside. Someone who knew every security flaw, every schedule, every blind spot. By nightfall, Lakeview Motel revealed the first clue. A single envelope slid under the door of room 14. Inside, a photo of a young woman, tied loosely, looking terrified but alive, and a note written in Calder's handwriting. "She knows too much. If you want answers, follow the trail. But be careful, some secrets are deadly." Marissa's stomach churned. This wasn't just about missing people or prison games. Calder was holding someone close to the investigation, a witness, perhaps, or someone who had stumbled onto the network he and his accomplices had built. Daniels realized the scale of the operation. What started as a high-profile prisoner's request had evolved into a race against time, a puzzle involving betrayal, corruption, and deadly precision. And as the night deepened, the danger grew clearer. Every move by law enforcement, every attempt to corner Calder, was anticipated. Somewhere in the shadows, Calder was watching, waiting, orchestrating the next move. And the most chilling part? Daniels knew that catching him wouldn't end the nightmare. Calder's network was still active, still dangerous, and still hungry for control. The night ended with a final, harrowing discovery. Hidden behind a false wall in the motel room, evidence linking top prison officials to the disappearances, money trails, and clandestine communications. The conspiracy ran deeper than anyone could imagine. And just as Daniels picked up the first file, the motel room phone rang. A distorted voice whispered, "You're too late, she's already gone. But if you think this ends here, you're wrong. Calder is only beginning." The final confrontation before we end this story, make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, share this with everyone, and drop a comment below, because what you about to witness inside America's deadliest prisons is the kind of story that will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. Detective Marissa Collins and Officer Daniels had barely caught their breath when the trail led them to an abandoned textile factory on the outskirts of Baton Rouge. The place was a labyrinth of rusted machinery, shadowed hallways, and shattered windows, the kind of place where sound swallowed itself and every movement echoed like a warning. Calder's fingerprints were everywhere, not literally, but in the traces of planning, the marks of surveillance, the carefully planted clues leading them forward. They moved cautiously, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every step felt like walking into a trap. And in a way it was. Calder wasn't just hiding. He was waiting. The first room they entered held evidence of the network's reach. Files detailing missing persons, communication logs from insiders at multiple prisons, and financial transactions pointing to bribes and hush money. Marissa's stomach twisted. The scale of corruption was unimaginable, and the web of danger wasn't just about Calder. It included people they had trusted, officers they had worked alongside, and even some in the higher ranks of the justice system. And then they heard it, a soft click from the metal door at the end of the corridor. Daniels signaled Marissa, and they approached, guns drawn. Calder stepped into the dim light, calm, collected, almost unnervingly composed. "Detective Collins," he said, voice low, almost conversational, "you've been busy." "Calder," Marissa snapped, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "It ends tonight. You're going back to prison. No more games." He smiled faintly, like a man who had been expecting this moment for years. "Games? No. This is just reality. You're finally seeing what life looks like behind the walls you trust so blindly." Suddenly, alarms blared outside. The local police had surrounded the factory. Calder's plan was meticulous, but he hadn't counted on law enforcement acting this fast. He made a sudden move toward a hidden staircase leading down. Daniels lunged, catching him by the arm. Calder struggled, but his calm, calculated demeanor never faltered. "You'll never stop it," Calder hissed, eyes burning with intensity. "Even if I'm caught, the network continues. You think you've seen it all, but this is only the beginning." With a final push, Daniels restrained him. Marissa cuffed Calder as backup swarmed in. It was over, yet the unease lingered. The network Calder had built didn't end with him in handcuffs. It was bigger, deeper, and far more insidious than anyone had realized. Back at the police station, as Marissa and Daniels reviewed the confiscated evidence, they discovered one final, terrifying revelation. A folder labeled "Only Priority, Do Not Open" contained detailed plans for targeting officials, witnesses, and anyone threatening the network. And at the bottom of the folder, a single note: "You caught me, but others will continue what I started. Trust no one." Marissa sat back, exhausted but resolute. "So this isn't over," she murmured. Daniels nodded grimly, realizing that while Calder was behind bars, the story, the danger, was far from finished. The camera of truth may have captured Calder's capture, but the shadows he operated in were still out there, waiting. A chilling reminder: prisons may hold the criminals, but some of the real monsters walk freely, protected by the very systems meant to stop them. As the night settled and the city slept unaware, one truth became undeniable. Every crime, every conspiracy, every secret traced back to Calder would haunt the justice system for years to come. And for Marissa and Daniels, the fight for truth was just beginning. So remember, if you thought this story was intense, hit subscribe, like, comment, share, and turn on notifications. Because the next story inside America's deadliest prisons is already waiting. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.